Hello, this is the Growth League podcast. My name is Caleb Clark, and my mission for this show is pretty simple. It's to learn from marketers on how they're playing the great game of marketing leadership. Their ideas, experiences, perspective, wins and losses, and the playbook that they've established over time. Listen, there's more than one way to lead a marketing team and a marketing function. So if you're a VP, a CMO, director, or someone aspiring to fill one of these marketing leadership roles in the future, tune in to learn from some of the best in the business.
When I went to work for the team, the CEO I had worked for in New York sent me a card, and sometimes in your career you keep them. And the note he sent to me was, you have this incredible way of manifesting your direction and destiny.
Yeah.
And I never thought about that before. But to this day, now, man, do I appreciate and think about the value, right, and the power of positive thinking and the time we take. And so it was a real lesson for me.
Well, that's been a constant theme here too, is like if you want it, define it and go do it. There's not a lot in the way other than what's going on up here sometimes. So, everyone, welcome. My guest today is Kathryn Dobbs. She's the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at the Columbus Blue Jackets. Very exciting job posting, industry. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
So this is your first time at the gathering?
It is.
And in Banff too?
I haven't been since I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the experience been like?
Well, as I just said to someone a few minutes ago, I'm really glad that I came this year because the experience is setting me up, I think, better for next year. Yeah. It has been a whirlwind. You know when you book these things, first of all, it's attractive to come to Banff.
Yeah.
I was attracted to the conference first. I think having it in Banff was really what sealed the deal. But it's hard enough to take time to come to something like this.
Yeah.
But then you come all this way and you're like, man, if I only had another day or two.
Yeah.
So I feel like, okay, now I know what I've got myself into. Now I know what to expect, how to make the most of the time here, both at the conference and then, to enjoy the beauty around us.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I love when people come in and we can get to show off our backyard a little bit.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
so beautiful.
So tell me and tell our listeners a little bit about your journey as a marketer and a marketing leader and what ultimately brought you to the Blue Jackets.
So, grew up in Canada, went to high school in Canada.
Come on.
Yeah, Brockville, Ontario, actually with Ryan Gill. We went to high school together. So he's the one that convinced me to come. When I arrived here on Tuesday, we hadn't seen each other in 30 years.
What?
So, so I thank him, and I'm so proud to know what he's done. So that's been a whole other experience I've had since I've been here. But my last year of high school, my parents were transferred to the States. I stayed up there, finished high school. I always thought I'd go to Queen's University and take law. That was my plan. And then my parents moved to Georgia, which that in itself is an experience. I was like, okay, well, I'll go down, go to college, move back to Canada at some point, and found myself there. Went to school a couple years, went over to school in Europe. My parents moved back to Canada, came back. So at that point, I'm like, what is a practical thing to do? So I took business.
Yep.
Loved marketing. I knew no matter what, I would do. And I really didn't have any idea. I think when you're young, you think there's known careers and there's things that aren't known. And so I was working for a manufacturing company, so I met a boy from Ohio.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yep. Happened to be that I moved there 1 month before the kickoff of the Columbus Blue Jackets in 2000. Okay, so that's where my relationship started with the Blue Jackets. And so I was working for a manufacturing company. It was during telecom. We were getting laid off every 2 weeks. I survived for 2.5 years. It was an incredible experience. And then the chairman of the board, his wife came to me and said, have you ever thought of working for a nonprofit? I'm like, no. And it's sort of like shame on us sometimes when you realize, but you're young, I don't know, you don't think about it. And she said, well, what about the YMCA? I'm like, I'm from a town of 200 in Northern Ontario.
Yeah.
Okay. We didn't have a grocery store, so we certainly didn't have a YMCA. So I was like, well, that sounds interesting. I went, I interviewed, I'm like, I can do marketing for a YMCA. Like, what a great, community organization. And then when I got there, they're like, we'd like you to start a fundraising campaign. Well, I can remember in school thinking, I'll never be in sales, right? I'll never be in sales. And then I woke up and I found myself just making you feel really good. Nothing tangible I'm going to give you, but I'm going to make you feel really good about giving me your money. So I went to work for the Y, absolutely fell in love with the organization, the mission, the scope of the work worldwide. And that really was a 12-year journey for me. So I started in Ohio. Meanwhile, I'm going to Columbus Blue Jackets games.
Right.
I'm thinking, wow, like this community is amazing. Non-traditional market, didn't know a lot about hockey. And, you know, as a Canadian hockey fan, we can be pretty tough, right? We can be tough critics, but here I am in this market where they're so happy to have this professional sports team, and you're watching this evolution of what this professional sports team is doing in the community. My brother would come down from Canada, just, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how much we loved it. And it's not because of their record, right?
Sure.
And
Nash was there at the time. So.
Right, yes, he was. Let me tell you, I got one signature on my Team Canada jersey as a fan.
That's awesome.
And now he has an office down the hall from me, so crazy things. So anyway, loved what I was doing, and then had an opportunity to look at the vacancy list. Ended up moving to Virginia Beach to continue my Y journey. Got the center ice package, kept following my team. Ended up moving to New York to live on a YMCA resident camp on 6,000 acres. A consultant called me about the job. He said, look, they need a chief development officer, but it's the middle of nowhere. I'm like, well, talk to me about the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, right.
It's like, well, it's an hour and 15 minutes from Walmart, no cell service, but they're going to give you a 4-bedroom cabin. I'm like, that sounds amazing. So I moved out there, just incredible work. Again, bringing kids from New York City that had never seen the stars before to have a camp experience. Again, loved everything about it. But at that point, I had a daughter. She was just about 5 years old. It's an hour and a half to ballet.
Oh my God.
I'm driving down the mountain to take her to childcare, and I'm a single mom. And so at this point, you know, you're trying to decide your path, trying to really do the right thing for us. And I got a call from a guy from worked at YUSA at the time out of Chicago, Blackhawks fan.
Okay.
So he calls me up and he's like, "You're a Blue Jackets fan?" I said, "I'm a Blue Jackets fan." He said, "The Columbus Y needs a chief development officer." I'm like, all right. So there's a lot more behind that story, because I did get a call from Curtis McElhenney, who was a backup goalie at the time for the Blue Jackets, who actually called me to tell me how much I would love going to work for the YMCA in Columbus. He and his wife were members. So crazy journey. I end up, I'm like, great. I'm back in Ohio.
There's Walmart's close.
Oh,
There's ballet.
well, you know what the
class.
selling point was? I live by the zoo. One of the best zoos in America, by the way.
Okay.
So, there I am, and I'm like, okay, well, my first day on the job with the Columbus Y, got a note because the Blue Jackets were taking proposals for All-Star, for a community project.
Yeah.
Now, I'm like, this is my moment.
Yeah.
Because when I was working for the Y, in 2005, I learned that the Columbus Blue Jackets had a foundation.
Yeah.
And it was the first, again, you just don't think about these things, right? I'm like, so I can marry my favorite things, right? My work with the community with my favorite hockey team. So forever, I'm like, that's what I want to do someday. Yeah. I went online, filled out the teamwork online in 2005 in case the job ever opened. But there my journey took me, right? Virginia, New York, now I'm back in Columbus. So I called up on my first day. I called up the executive director of the foundation. I said, I know you're taking proposals. Yeah. You don't know me. Columbus is kind of a small town. Yeah. And I said, but we need to talk. And she said, when? I said, how about now? I literally got up from my desk and walked the few blocks to the arena and gave what I thought was like my 12-year speech. Right? Yeah. You need to grow hockey in Columbus, and I can help you. The YMCA does an incredible job. Right?
So you're doing it through the lens of the YMCA?
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely, right? So sticks in hands. We do youth development. We have kids. We need your expertise, right? Let's make a deal. So I gave my pitch. They already had a plan for All-Star, an amazing project with Ronald McDonald House, but she said, let's do something. So I got a grant to start a program called Skills and Drills, which we have to this day, still exists, this program.
Awesome.
And so I'm living my dream. I walk out the front door of the arena, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I lived it today.
Yeah.
I lived it today. And that was April of 2014. And then in June, I started another program with the team called Time Out to Read. PNC Bank sponsored it. We did reading initiatives in child care centers.
Yeah.
Awesome. In July, the executive director left the foundation. And I got a call from the board chair. She called me up and she said, I don't suppose you'd have an interest in having a conversation.
Come on.
12 years later. 12 years later. She told this story. They had a nice celebration for me when I was promoted to CMO, and she told the story. She's like, I'm on the phone with this girl. I ask her if she's interested, and she's like, I hear nothing.
Yeah.
She goes, hello? I'm not speechless very often.
Wow.
I said the only thing I'd ever leave the YMCA for is this job at the Columbus Blue Jackets. And she said, well, let's talk.
Dang.
So it took 6 months. It was a long process. But on New Year's Eve, we negotiated, and that really meant something to me because no matter where I lived, I'd go home to Canada at Christmas, and I'd drive back through Columbus every New Year's to go to the game.
Wow.
So for
so
years,
special,
yeah, and here I was, so when I went to work for the team, that was it, right? I mean, I truly felt like I was living everything I could have ever imagined. So I did that so that was executive director of the foundation and vice president of community development. I was in that role for 3 years, 3.5. Grew the team, did amazing work in the community to get sticks in hands, partnerships. That was the first time the team had ever given out $1 million. I mean, we've been killing it ever since.
Yeah.
And then one day the president came and said, I'd like you to become the chief marketing officer. And I was like, let me get this straight. I'd done all these other things, and I even worked in agriculture, by the way,
yeah.
and like random background. I'm like, you want me to be responsible for marketing a product we can't control? Because that sounds terrible, right?
In terms of wins and losses.
Yeah, right. Now, I've come to appreciate that's truly not what we're marketing at the end of the day because I can't count on that.
Right.
But I'm now 5 years in.
That's
still
a great story.
finding my way.
That's a fantastic story. And congratulations.
Thank you. I know it's long, but it's I like to share. When I went to work for the team, the CEO I had worked for in New York sent me a card, and sometimes in your career you keep them. And the note he sent to me was, you have this incredible way of manifesting your direction and destiny.
Yeah.
And I never thought about that before. But to this day, now, man, do I appreciate and think about the value, right, and the power of positive thinking and the time we take. And so it was a real lesson for me. Well,
that's been a constant theme here too. Is like if you want it, define it and go do it. There's not a lot in the way other than what's going on up here sometimes. So that's a great example.
Prioritizing time.
So as it relates to your job, and I'll ask you this way, what do you get paid to do?
So above all else, I believe I'm paid for my judgment.
Okay. Tell me more.
Forget I oversee 9 different business units. Forget what the technical side of that is. Yes, I'm in charge of marketing, but I am paid for judgment every day. If I define it a little bit more in the role and the title, I would say I tell people that my job is one, when I have the time to think about what I'm supposed to think about, that's I'm a brand ambassador because you don't have time when you're executing every day. But what I'm really doing most of the time is making sure that my team has the resources they need to do their job, and I'm there to remove barriers in the way. And then because of all the collaboration and great ideas, takes so much collaboration across departments, I'm there to help try to bring the right people together, whether it's to solve a problem or move on a great idea. So that's kind of how I think about it. So my concern always is, these people are a lot smarter than I am. I work with an amazing team. The business intelligence team knows more than I do. The content team knows more than I do about the subject. So, I ask questions, I guide, I help, and I just try to set them up for success, which sometimes feels like all you do is herd cats. Like some days I'm like, what did I do today? Like, what did I really do today? And then I really have to sit back sometimes and be like, even when I hear when they're having challenges or departments aren't working well together and they don't want to tell me because they think I'm busy, right? And I'll be like, but that's actually my job.
So I was going to ask on that, do you have any processes or infrastructure in place, whether that be formal or more like a feeling thing, that allow you to, when you're driving home, be able to gauge with a high degree of accuracy whether or not you did a good job today? Do you have the ability or the information available to you or feel that you can say, I did a good job or I didn't do a good job today?
Yeah, and I guess sometimes it's how we evaluate ourselves, right? So you have all these books and studies and right, what kind of person you are and personalities. And I learned a long time ago, everything for me is progress. And even when I talk to my team or we're working on a project, I'm like, did we move the needle in the right direction? Maybe we didn't move it all the way, but are we going the right direction? And there's days when I'm like, it doesn't matter even how much we did yesterday, because today's a new day, right? We could have had all the progress in the world yesterday. And so I think there's those moments, and there are very real days when you didn't go forward and you might have gone backwards. Yeah. But I think it's like everything else, you're looking for this benchmark that you're keeping one eye on, right? And you're allowed to have 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And some days I have more time to think about it. I mean, a game day can be 14 hours. I might be driving home, right, at 10:30 or 11. And at that point, I'm just hoping I can stop my brain long enough to sleep to get up the next morning. And my daughter gets on the bus at 6:20 in the morning. I want to poke my eyes out after a game.
That's early.
So, you're just...
Do you travel, too, with when they go on road trips?
Not typically. Try to do a few trips a year. Yeah. It's an opportunity to have the experience with some other teams. Although it's nice to visit other arenas when they're not playing our team. Right. Because really I want to feel it from the experience of the local fan to truly appreciate and kind of evaluate things. I'm actually headed with the team next week in Montreal, and I'm hoping to do the West Coast Canada trip this year.
Sweet.
So it really is good to get a chance to do that, but quite frankly, we get more work done when the team's on the road. Yeah. Because you're just trying to get everything before they come back. Yeah. Because when you're executing on games, all you're doing is executing. You're just there's no time to sort of plan and find that time to really think about these things.
If marketing and marketing leadership were considered a game, why do you personally enjoy playing this game? What do you like about this game? Why are you doing this? Other than the affinity for hockey and for the Blue Jackets, but the function of marketing and marketing leadership, why do you like it?
Well, so philosophically, the world is tough, right? It's a tough world out there. So the opportunity as a professional sports team for people to come and escape and connect with their family, that driving factor of people wanting to be a part of something. It's what I loved about working for the Y, right? So never mind, the exercise class, at 6 a.m. It's the relationships of the people waiting at the door for you to unlock the door at 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And I came to really appreciate in the world that we have to have those things. And so it's interesting to me that in my time with the Y and now my time through sports, right, we give people an opportunity to be part of something. Yeah. We've heard people talk a lot about loneliness and all the challenges and things that we're facing. And so knowing that you can deliver on that when every day it's harder and harder for people every day. Yeah. And so that piece fulfills me.
So that's been a thread between the two Y and Blue Jackets. It's that being a part of ritual, being a part of...
Yeah, and I talked on the panel the other day because I didn't plan to ask people for money, and I spent a lot of time training volunteers to ask for money. And if you ask a room full of people, there's not many people that enjoy doing that, right? It's intimidating and scary. And the way I found myself through it and how I tried to help people is, again, because it's a tough world out there, when you ask someone to make a gift, right, to help a family, a child, you're giving them an opportunity to be part of something. And if we're doing it right, that's what we're doing, right? And so that piece, I found, and now I live it. Yeah. When you can come to the game, or you can sit at home and watch the game and order the pizza, and it's just a place where it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter what kind of day you had, and there's something special about that. And the hard times, that's really what I think grounds me. Yeah. And forget selling tickets and forget this, man, we're giving people an opportunity to be part of something. And
that's great.
And as long as they feel good about it, we're doing a good job.
Yeah, and that can remain regardless if you have Stanley Cup winning seasons or below 500 first pick in the draft seasons?
Well, it has to, right?
It
Because I have no idea. I call that unpredictable excitement.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't know. But I know what I can deliver when you come into the arena. Right? You know, you're going to have an amazing experience, and you're going to stop at our fan zone, and right? You're going to take shots on net, and you're going to take a picture with your favorite player, and you know, I know we can do that every single time, and we can do it well.
Awesome. As a marketing leader, what would you claim to be your superpower? Something that others on your team might say, Kathryn, this is what we get. This is awesome, and something that makes you feel confident going into the job because you know it's your superpower.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think you know a lot of people want to work in sports, right? So when you post a job, you're going to get a lot of super fans.
Yeah.
Okay. But I was a
Not
super
marketers
fan.
necessarily.
Right. But I was a super fan.
Right.
And sometimes you want to shy away from that, right? But for me, and I think where I gain my enthusiasm and sometimes perseverance is because I was a fan first. Now, there are meetings that I'm in where I have to start the meeting with my own team, right?
Yeah.
And be like, okay, we're going to have this conversation, and I acknowledge, right, I'm a fan first. But it's so personal to me, but you talk about your gut, right, and the decisions that we make. That's where it's driven from for me. Yeah. And now I have to balance that, but you know, I feel like when I work with my team and we have conversations and you know, we're doing the opening video and we're looking at stuff, you know, I'm looking in the opening video on opening night to understand where in the moment is that fan going to feel it.
That's awesome.
Right? And so I'd like to think that is my superpower because it's so personal to me, but it is also the scariest and most humbling thing in the world because it's like, you know, I used to love it and enjoy it, and then someone hands you, right? And I point to the logo often and say, like, you know, that's what I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for how you feel when you see it and wear it and experience it. And I don't want to F that up.
Right.
For me or anybody else.
Yeah. But it sounds like that was the superpower at the YMCA as well. You cared about that.
Yeah, I did.
Logo.
I did, and that's a scary thing too when you think about what you want to do, and you know, and young people nowadays, you know, interns, you're talking to them, and they're all like, "I want to find my passion," and it's funny because I'm like, forget passion right now. Like, get a job, right? And then, you know, make the most of that job, and then find your way.
Use it as a way.
So it's a little weird because for the young people getting started, I want to be like, you know, forget passion for a minute because you don't even know. You know, I had no idea. Right. And most people in sports, like, I wanted to be in sports all the time. I'm like, yeah, no, I never woke up and said, I want to work in sports one day. Yeah. So I don't know if I want to work for the Columbus Blue Jackets or I want to work in sports.
That's awesome. On the flip side of that, what is one thing that you're very, very aware of, and it's, but it represents an area of gap for you or weakness as it relates to marketing, leadership, and function?
Well, so the good news, I think, for us coming out of the pandemic, first of all, our ownership group was incredible. I mean, incredible. We all stayed on. And we were very fortunate because not every team and certainly not every company treated the employees that way.
Right.
However, a lot of people moved on, right? And so when it was time to come back out of the pandemic, there was a lot of holes, and because I oversee so many departments, it gave me an opportunity to look through that lens and be like, okay, before I do this. And I always felt like we were still missing the opportunity on content strategy. And I know everyone's talking about it. I think we were ahead of the curve on business intelligence, partly because we've had to be.
Yeah.
But I needed someone that knew more than I did.
Okay.
And so that allowed me, it wasn't pretty, but to do a restructure and continuing to look at an amazing production team. And so, continuing to build out that group and then have an amazing executive that truly understands the opportunity both from a revenue generation but also storytelling. So as much as we've made strides, that's the one that still kind of keeps me up at night. Okay. We've gotten a lot better, but because the other side of what I do every day, right, on that conversation on resources, there's not a day that goes by that I don't have some department that needs, right? We need more business intelligence. Right. We need more creative. We don't need a graphics designer. We need, and I constantly have to weigh out, and I have to remind the team that it's not just your department. I have to look at it holistically. And so if I summarize the needs across those 9 business units, that's the place that I know there's still opportunity. And it's, I'm thankful for where we've come, but I'm well aware that there's a lot more opportunity there. Yeah. And if we don't get it right, maybe risk.
For you personally, what does evolution as a CMO look like for you? Something that you see on the horizon, or you're excited to develop into your repertoire, into your toolkit? What comes to clarity for you? That's
a great question. I think it still goes back into this content piece, right? Okay. So, the story of the Blue Jackets, right? When you don't have the platform of winning and eyeballs, right, outside of the local market, we have a behind-the-scenes show right now called Behind the Battle, and that opportunity to capture right now our story. And of course, our fans love it, and we utilize that to build confidence in the marketplace right now, right? We've had an interesting summer, a coaching change. So there's some people out there going like, what is going on in Columbus? Right. Well, we're trying to capture that behind the scenes, and yes, that's in the moment, but what I aspire for is the day we get to share with the world how we built a winning franchise in Columbus, Ohio.
Because these are foundational blocks you're putting in right now.
Absolutely, and sometimes that's a tough conversation to have when you want access, right? You're like, I know, but we have to cover the highs and we have to cover the lows, and some of it may never be seen, right? It's like when we ask if we can cover a player's recovery from injury. Right. There's a chance. But if it's a great story, we want to share it. Well, we can't if we never had it in the first place. Right. And so we have a new coach right now. We're very excited about that, and I hope, that when we look in the spirit of content and storytelling and who we are as a franchise, that excites me.
That's awesome. And so that if that drives you and that's what's on top of your mind right now, does that permeate amongst the rest of the team? Are they passionate about identifying and telling these stories? Yeah, I mean, as a marketing team, everything we do is focused on strengthen the brand, broaden the base. Strengthen the brand, broaden the base. If we're not doing that, then we should be asking, why are we doing it? And so as part of building confidence in the marketplace, we identify the storylines. Well, those stories can be told, right, through paid media, through unpaid, right? So all my team is focused on that. So we're all buying into the identification of, right, what those opportunities are that, we tell now or we tell later. But that sort of, and it's pretty much an 18-month view right now that we keep up and go, okay, does it still make sense? We've got young players, we've got young talent. We've drafted Fantilli. What a great story. It could work out very well for you, just from the sports side of things, just if you understand rosters and caps, which I do. Yeah, I mean, we've got a young team. Yeah. We've got some young talent. Yeah. I want to take a departure here and just exclaim my frustration with the Columbus Blue Jackets stealing probably the best flame. Do we need to have a bet on today's game? Because they do play today. I can't believe I came all the way out here, and Calgary's in Columbus today. But what does a guy like that bring to the city organization? Goudreau, like little guy, not very loud, but what does that bring? Does it? Well, in some ways, it's a little bit of the Columbus brand, both as a team, right, and a city. There's not a lot of people that wake up and say, I want to go on vacation. I'm going to go to Columbus, Ohio. Right. But let me tell you how amazing Columbus is. And so when you have a player like that who identifies wanting to live there, right? He's raising a family there now. He literally took less money to go there, so it was a decision. Correct. And it's funny because to the rest of the world, it's like, what? Yeah. And then, to those of us that know the best kept secrets, right? We have players right now playing, that moved on from the Blue Jackets,
move to multiple teams, building houses because they intend to settle, right? Just like Rick Nash. But that's a great opportunity because, right, now there's a whole different audience in Western Canada that's paying attention, whether you're angry about it when you're watching or not. But that is a new opportunity for us. And truly, it's a new opportunity for us, for our brand, too. It's just like, to play Toronto, right? And that opportunity for other people to be exposed to us. So I would say this to you as a Flames fan. My hope is at the very least, Columbus is now your second favorite hockey team. So there you go.
Got to get a new jersey. Okay, I'll put that to bed.
Okay.
Big part of your role, no doubt, is integrating the marketing strategy system throughout other departments in the organization and getting buy-in, understanding, and co-creation from other stakeholders. It's a big part of any marketing leader's job. What's been your approach to not only just getting an understanding, but a buy-in to what are we trying to do here?
Yeah, so if I would look back in the last 5 years and say, what would I do differently? It probably leads to answering that question. When the president offered me the opportunity, we made an agreement at that time.
Okay.
I would step into this if we did a DMA study and a brand perception study.
Okay.
The team was in a different place. He
As
said,
a benchmark.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to understand how things have changed, right? We'd experienced some winning. We had a very relentless, no-quit team at that time, and so we made the deal because, as you know, those things can be expensive. And then he said to me, "Well, I want you to build a new brand platform." And the history of the Columbus Blue Jackets really had been just marketing campaigns up until that point.
Okay.
So we went through this process, everything you'd expect, built this brand platform, and that was the opportunity to go organizational-wide. So I sat down with hockey operations, right, and walked through and started that conversation, right? What does it mean to be a Columbus Blue Jacket?
Right.
And actually, one of the great takeaways, we call it the creed. It's essentially like, what does it mean when we talk about our blue as a Blue Jacket? Right. And as I was having these meetings and talking about this new brand, and I was set to meet with John Tortorella.
Oh, boy.
And I'm looking at my presentation, right? I've got brand pillars, and I've got all these different things. I'm like, oh, my goodness. There's no way.
What a wild presentation.
There's no way, right? And this is a great opportunity. It's the first time, right? You're really trying to bring the business and hockey together, and I don't want to, like everything else, I don't want to screw it up. So it was preseason. We were trying to launch for opening night. We really weren't quite prepared, but we didn't want to miss the opportunity.
Right.
And so we had a Saturday preseason game against Pittsburgh. I went home. My meeting with Torts is on Monday, and I'm like, pfft. So I sat down on my living room floor with a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, how do I tell Torts, right? What is this? And so I wrote what we refer to as the creed. That was 5 years ago. I underestimated the education of brand versus marketing, a marketing campaign.
Okay. Yeah.
I met with human resources, so if you're going to onboard as a new employee, we want you to know it and feel it. You're doing it, while the plane's flying, because now we're going in season and you need all these things. And by the way, we launched this at the beginning of 2019, right before the pandemic.
Yeah. One thing, just so I understand, for this upcoming meeting, did you require to get buy-in from Torts, or is it just a, hey, FYI?
Well, here's the reality. If we're doing this well, when I present who we are, it's not like, oh, this is who we're going to be. It is who we are. Okay. And I want the locker room to look at it and go, yep, that's who we are.
So he's the representation.
He's the representation. And not only that, when we talk about the language and what we're speaking,
right.
It's a beautiful thing when you start using language, right, in the organization. And then the next thing you know, your coach is using those words and your players are using those words. And now we're all singing from the same sheet of music.
Right.
That was the opportunity, right? There's a line in it that says it's when we get up. It's why we get up. It's how we get up and keep going no matter what. Now, I hope when the coach hears that and the players are like, yeah, right? And I told you, it was a gritty team, right? That was pushing so hard and had no quit at that time. And so if they feel it, they start talking about it, right? They're doing post-game. They're like, yeah, we didn't quit. We didn't quit, right? Yeah. And now we're talking about who we are. And so that was that was the opportunity. Now, here we are 5 years later. We've launched a new marketing campaign, right, under this brand umbrella, but the new coach, right, 2 days before training camp, had an opportunity, and I appreciate his commitment because he gave me time his first day to sit down and have a conversation about what it means to be a Blue Jacket. Went through the creed, and last week he talked to the team, he had a conversation about it, and he framed it and put it in the locker room in the coach's office.
That's amazing. What a cool intersection of marketing and the actual game.
And I think our team, a lot of people already feel that we're unique because the hockey operations offices are on suite level with the corporate executives. So we have a great working relationship and understanding and appreciation. And let me tell you, so we sold out the last 8 of 9 home games at the end of the season, right? We're at the bottom of the league. The appreciation from hockey operations, from the coach, from the team, right? To have people showing up and still, and so there's a really wonderful mutual respect that I think is a little bit unique about Columbus, but it's not unique about the Blue Jackets, right? That is so who we are. Just like our relationship with the fan base, right? Our fan base has a name. It's the fifth line, okay? So that is the Columbus way, and I think if you're Gaudreau, right, and you're talking to Cam Atkinson, who just spent a number of years with us, right, and you're saying, what's it like? That's the story they're getting, right? You're going to come to this community with an amazing zoo, right?
Next door.
There you go. With all of these things, like that's a great thing to be a part of. Now, when you walk out in public, you may not get stopped 10 times.
Right.
Good and bad.
Which
some
is
players
a lot of reason
like it.
why they like,
Yeah, some like it, some don't, right? Some want. But again, even the relationship with our players in the community, they go out to dinner and our fans go up. The just the respect and admiration that is both ways, you feel it in Columbus.
Yeah. Well, I can see very clearly how you and your team have played such a critical role in this. Be bottom of the league, but to be selling and putting butts in the seats, what that does to a team and their ability to perform is, and so great job.
Oh, thanks.
I want you to win.
Full on team. Thank you.
I do.
Full on team effort. I mean, truly, it takes every single person at the Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
But that's why we all own this, right? That our blue of what it takes. Every single person, from the person that says hello to you when you walk in, we all have one goal, and we're going to do our jobs to position our team. So that one day we're all going to celebrate and remember that time?
Okay, well, I commit. I'm a fan of the Blue Jackets, but it's because of you.
Thank you. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Leave us with this. What is something that has resonated with you from this experience at the gathering, or maybe a takeaway, or what are you going to take back to Columbus?
Well, I mentioned this earlier, that the challenge, and our business is very cyclical, right? So we just kicked off the season. Right now we're in execution, point. We're going to get ready for ticket renewals, and then the season ends, and you got draft, and then you're doing all your business plan. Like everything is, and that opportunity to take the time to dig in sometimes doesn't happen unless we come to places like this. So it's definitely, I've taken a lot of notes. And honestly, notes to myself, right? To be like, you need to think more about this. That sort of piece of being like, okay, I know we're doing great things, but like, we can totally be better. Chris Nealon's presentation the other day, I said, it was really good, but it kind of made me feel like I'm not doing good enough. What I mean? But that's great, right? Because that's what you need. So part of my takeaway not only is sort of looking at that and saying, where and how do I make time, but it's also making sure that the leadership team that I work with has the same opportunity.
Yeah, totally.
Because this stuff feeds your soul.
Yeah, it does.
Right? And unfortunately, a lot of times it's dedicated time, right? It's no different than taking time to relax, or I talk about that a lot too. I try to plan vacations out, because if you don't, and this is like another one of those things where you're like, okay, so I've already reserved a spot for next year.
I was going to say.
And I actually, and an extra one. So
good, smart.
Hopefully it's more than just two of us, but
Okay, so the date today is Friday, October 20th. Jackets play the Flames.
yeah.
So we're going to make a bet today. It'll
Okay.
be lunch next year at the gathering.
Perfect.
Just straight up, win or lose. No point, no
Okay.
goal differential.
Okay. You
And,
got it.
And you heard it here, so we'll timestamp it.
All right, I'm going to send a note to the coach right
That's
now
right.
and tell him he's about to cost me a lunch if he doesn't get
That's
that
right.
room going. I actually really just need my mother to call.
That's right.
And talk to the team for
Oh,
me.
really?
Oh, I have to remind my mother all the time. She'll be like this, and I'll be like, Mom,
That's so
I'm actually not in charge of hockey, Mom. And so I always say, I
but
think
you're
I need
influenced.
to send my mother in there.
That's so
So she and her pregame ritual is fireball.
Yeah. Oh,
By the
what?
way. Yeah, she sent me a note on Saturday's game, and I was like, keep drinking, Mom, keep drinking. She's this tiny 74-year-old lovely
That's
little
amazing.
lady. And at one point she sent me a note, and she's like, I think I'm going to pass out if this team doesn't keep going. I'm like, come on, Mom.
Oh my
So
God.
she came through big for us Saturday. We had a big win against the Rangers.
That's
so way to go,
so
Mom.
funny.
Way
That's
to go,
awesome.
Mom.
Thank you very much for sharing your journey and your way of playing this great game.
Thank you.
A lot of different ways to play it, and I think what you're doing is awesome.